Where to even begin? Around the association, the regular season finale on a Sunday. No games on Saturday, 15 games on Sunday. All 30 clubs in the NBA in action in their final game of the NBA regular season. With so much left to determine, but we saw motivation be quantified in very large spreads across the board. If you had something at stake, if you had a seed line on the line, it was baked into the number. So let's start maybe at the top of the Western Conference in the three-way race for that number one overall seed. It was pretty simple, though, entering the final day of the regular season. If the Thunder won, they would be the 1 seed. The Thunder needed to lose, and Minnesota needed to win for the T-Wolves to be the 1 seed. Denver needed both to lose and the Nuggets to win after the Nuggets lost, surprisingly, as a 13-point road favorite on Friday night in San Antonio. But the Thunder did not lose. In fact, they won by nearly 50 points. 135-86. Oklahoma City triumphant over a Dallas Mavericks team that had already solidified its place in an opening round series against the LA Clippers. OKC, 19-point favorite, and they easily cover the number. The Thunder scored 82 DRS in the opening half.
Yeah, and it was a blowout right from the get-go. And granted, I wasn't paying all that much attention until I saw that final score where I went back and said, what actually was that line? And because most people say, like, you know what, we don't think Dallas is going to play. But how many people actually lined up and said, you know, I'm going to lay the 20 points in that basketball game, knowing that all you needed was a victory. They didn't have to win by 20 points for some tie-breaking formula where you knew they would press the needle down. They absolutely hammered Dallas, but they should have. That was a backup group for Dallas. But also, let's shift the focus back on OKC. You earn the right for those victories here where you're playing for something and somebody else is not here. So the fact that the OKC was sitting back saying to themselves, well, look, nobody's going to feel bad for us if we got a full blast effort from the Mavericks and lost this game. So they earned that layup win against the Mavericks because the Mavericks weren't fighting for that top seed, obviously, but they were. So kudos to them for having an unbelievable regular season. And this is something that even, Ben, when we were previewing on Friday, going, man, there's no way the Denver Nuggets are going to lose that game to the Spurs. They're going to be that number 1 seed overall. And that was a shocking development when they lost that game, not only not covering the spread, but lost it outright. So I love the fact that OKC gets that top seed because I just wanted – it's not fair to say, like, I want Denver to earn it because that's not a fair picture here. I just think it's more intriguing in the West if Denver didn't have home court advantage, which they don't. So it's going to be a great run in the West now.
In both OKC and Denver, 33-8 at home this year. That is the second best home record in the NBA, only behind the Boston Celtics. The Thunder end the regular season on a 5-game win streak, covering in their last 4. They were struggling by Oklahoma City standards this season, really into those final 5 games, the final week and a half of this NBA regular season. Because of the absence of Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, he is back, and some are partitioning for SGA to be the NBA MVP in the regular season. And it was surprising, DRS, to see the Nuggets lose on Friday night in San Antonio. When we were breaking down that game, Denver, 13-point road favorite against the Spurs. They handled their business earlier in the week at home against the Minnesota Timberwolves, all but locking up, it seemed, the right to be the number 1 seed in the Western Conference. You and I were breaking down that game. We looked at the first half number. That's probably the way to play Denver. They covered as an 8.5-point first half favorite on Friday. Why do I know that? I bet the Nuggets. They were up by 11 to only lose the game by 1 in San Antonio, opening up the door for Oklahoma City to be the number 1 seed at the end of this regular season. As we shared earlier, shout out to our producer Joe Frieso for keeping a track of these odds. 34-1 for the Thunder to be the 1 seed in the Western Conference before the 2023-24 NBA regular season got started. You know, by the way, Denver was victorious yesterday in the regular season finale in Memphis, winning by 15 as a 13-point road favorite against the Grizz. Nikola Jokic, 15 points, 15 boards. Denver will be the 2 seed in the Western Conference playoffs.
Yeah, and that's good. I like that because it adds intrigue here. You're not just going to give Denver that top seed play in elevation where they've been absolutely filthy at home, but now you see the Oklahoma City Thunder. This is one of the question marks where you try to rise to the occasion because 3 weeks ago, if you would have said who's going to win this Western Conference here, or should I say who's going to be the top seed in the Western Conference, it was Denver. You knew the cream would eventually rise to the top, but the fact of the matter is, again, that they lost to the Spurs in that spot where they were so heavily favored. That was a shocker, but also credit OKC for coming down the stretch and playing great basketball. 5 straight wins to end the regular season. That's what did it for them. I like where they're going at this point, but also we know this isn't detrimental to Denver's run to the playoffs because they don't have home court advantage all throughout. Right. Oh, there's no way they can win this game. They are supremely talented. They cut down the Nets last year. They were the world champions. So they're going to have a chip on their shoulders now because most people might be saying, oh, look at that last year, an easy run through. Won't be that easy in the Western Conference. They'll have to earn it, but I'm here for it. I like the setup here for the Denver Nuggets with legitimate chance to repeat, even though, Ben, they didn't get that top overall seed.
No part of the Western Conference playoff bracket could be described as easy. Not the path for Oklahoma City as the 1 seed. Certainly not the path for the Denver Nuggets or the Minnesota Timberwolves, who lose yesterday at home, booked as a short favorite, laying 2 against the Phoenix Suns. The Suns win 3 in a row to end out the regular season to claim the 6th seed and avoid the play-in tournament out west. Because of the win and a Lakers victory over the Pelicans, the Pels fall into the 7th spot. They'll be in a play-in tournament matchup against the LA Lakers tomorrow night to start off the play-in tournament in the Western Conference. But we focus on Phoenix just momentarily here. Bradley Beal, game-high 36 points. Devin Booker pours in 23. Kevin Durant only adds 15, but 74 of the 125 scored yesterday by the Suns in the Twin Cities comes from the Big Three. Are we starting to believe in Phoenix once again?
Yeah, because you add to that big 3, too, and it's when you had Grayson Allen, who was 8 of 11 from the floor yesterday, including 3 for 3 from three-point range, chip in with 20 points. They are dangerous. This is a better version of the Phoenix Suns coming into the playoffs this year being healthy than what we saw last year, was Kevin Durant and Devin Booker. If they don't combine for 85 points every single night, there was no chance that the Phoenix Suns would be able to win multiple series. So now you take a look at this year. This is what we asked for, Ben, to be honest. If you just go back and rewind to game number 1, forget about these 3 guys playing together all season long. All you wanted was the big 3 to be healthy for game number 1 of the playoffs, and they are. So you're willing to back the Phoenix Suns in that environment here. And it's funny because it seems like either way I go, I'm fading the Suns, they dominate. Oh, I'm going to back the Suns. What the hell kind of loss was that on the previous game, right? That's the way it's been feeling for us this year. But I like the way they ended the season. And also, they got a full punch here from Minnesota. That was a road game for Phoenix going up against Minnesota. That's a great victory here. So something to build on. And again, 15 out of Durant, but 36 out of Beal. As long as one of those big 3 can really step up and hit that gas pedal like Beal did, they're going to be a dangerous out no matter where they go. But the question always lies, are we just going to wait to see what they can do in round number 1? Are we going to wait to see what they do in round number 2? When is the right time to get on the Suns to try to catch them at a good price point? Because once they start to win and look good, obviously we know that number is going to plummet.
So right now, because of the win yesterday, the Suns win in Minnesota, a place they will need to win at least a few times come the opening round of the playoffs. That's the 3-6 matchup in the Western Conference. And despite not having home court advantage, the Suns will be a slight favorite, minus 120 in that series outright price. The only other opening round set that we know at this moment, for the 3rd time in the last 5 NBA seasons, it's the Dallas Mavericks and the LA Clippers. Home floor advantage for the Clips inside Crypto.com Arena. Again, same series outright number at this juncture, minus 120 for Los Angeles. But the Mavericks playing great basketball despite a big loss to the Thunder yesterday. Not at full strength, barely playing anybody to end out the regular season. Interesting game as well, DRS. A couple of the matchups that we saw to end the regular season are those playoff or play-in matchups that we will have to begin the postseason. The Lakers go into New Orleans. A huge game for the Pelicans in the Big Easy. And the Lakers win outright as a 3-point dog by 16. 124-108. The Lakers won 11 of their final 14 games. Total of 231 goes over by a point yesterday. The Lakers over in 10 of their final 14 regular season games. And if you're looking for a postseason picture, LeBron, 28 points, 17 assists, 11 boards. Anthony Davis, 30 points, 11 rebounds in New Orleans. As the Lakers get a huge win over the Pelicans, that will be the 7-8 matchup in the play-in tournament to start the play-in tourney tomorrow night.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it as well. You like that rematch right back off it here. And that's a monster win by the Lakers because we knew they weren't going to get into the top 6, but you want to be in that 7-8 seed. So if you do lose that matchup here, you then get home court advantage in the final playing game, which you will have on your home court, which is key. But also, Anthony Davis played more games this year, I believe, than any other point in his career. Now, the questions come up late in that game. He gets injured a little bit, but he vowed that no matter what, he's going to be there for game number 1 of the playoffs, which is key. But you sort of rest on your laurels. It's LeBron James, it's Anthony Davis, it's a Pelicans team that's so talented, but just haven't shown us exactly the keys to victory here. Let's see if they can do that in that playoff game. But I don't think too many people are going to be doubting the Los Angeles Lakers if they once again go into New Orleans and handle themselves with a victory.
The Lakers now have the best price of the 4 Western Conference play-in tournament teams to see the playoffs at minus 550. The Lakers a very slight favorite on the road tomorrow in New Orleans in that first play-in tournament game. Here are the odds to win the West at the end of the regular season. We'll have plenty more to preview the postseason later on in this show, but the Nuggets, despite being the 2 seed, are still the short favorites, nearly $5 in front of the rest of the field, plus 135. OKC and LA, 6-1, tied for the second best price. Now to the Eastern Conference next. So we showed you in our previous segment how the West was won, or at least the structure of the Western Conference postseason. Now the same conversation out East. So much to iron out from really seed line 2 through 8. The only thing we knew for sure entering the regular season finale on Sunday, the Boston Celtics were going to be the number 1 seed, having clinched the NBA's best record nearly a week and a half ago. And the 9-10 matchup in the Eastern Conference play-in tournament would be in Chicago this week between the Bulls and the Hawks. But everything else, very up for grabs, including the number 2 seed in the Eastern Conference. And the New York Knicks, based on that motivation, being a part of the handicap and at least baked into the spread, 15-point home favorite yesterday, DRS, in their regular season home finale against the Chicago Bulls. As we saw in many other spots, if you were booked as a double-digit favorite, there was a reason. Not necessarily the case for the Knickerbockers. They do win outright by 1 in overtime, 120-119 over Chicago. The Bulls do cover as a 15-point dog. The Knicks have won 5 straight to round out the regular season. No cover in their last 2, though, as a double-digit favorite. They win in OT. They go full out for that number 2 seed. But was it the wise choice by Tom Thibodeau and company to be the 2 seed in the Eastern Conference?
It wasn't the wise choice. But then again, you never know how things break anyway as they set up towards the playoffs and which teams you want to play or not. Usually the theory is just get as high as you can in the standings because that usually will be beneficial to you throughout your playoff run. But as we said, the Miami Heat and the Philadelphia 76ers aren't 7-8 seeds. They're 2-3 seeds here that you're going to line up and play. But I like the gumption where the Knicks said, you know what, we want this game. It's at home. We're going to take this game. We're not going to lay down and lose momentum into the playoffs because we were trying to duck an opponent. And as it turns out, if you duck that opponent, then you lose round number 1. What were you actually trying to do anyway? So I don't mind what the Knicks actually did, but I think most people watching that scenario play out going like, hey, New York, you sure you want to win this basketball game because the path might be easier as a 3 seed than a 2 seed? Again, I say this where I don't have any issue with that. Anytime you want to take a win and improve your standings, that's what you're supposed to do, even though it looks like it may be detrimental with that victory yesterday by 1 point.
And we'll show you why it's detrimental in just a little bit. But when you have the Sixers, who have won 8 straight on the longest active win streak around the association to end out the regular season, now that Joel Embiid is back into the fold, he didn't even play yesterday for Philly. Neither did Tyrese Maxey against the Brooklyn Nets, and they still won by 21 points. And on the other side of that 7-8 matchup is the Miami Heat, who have been to the Eastern Conference Finals and reach a different level come the postseason in 3 of the past 4 years. It is not necessarily the best recipe. And the Knicks will be shorthanded. No Julius Randle for the playoffs either. I'll ask you the question in just a little bit, DRS, about that potential 2-7 matchup in the Eastern Conference postseason. But that's why it was a little bit interesting to go full bore for that number 2 seed. Donnie is right. You try to win a game. It's professional sports. You try to win a game to improve your seed line, but it is about matchups by the time you reach the postseason. Really, 82 games, be damned. It's about how your playoff outlook now looks. And the reason the Knicks could take the 2 seed is because the Bucks, without Giannis and without a ton of care on the road yesterday in Orlando, do go down. The Magic entered having dropped 4 of their previous 5 games. They get a win at home, 113-88, covering as a 5.5-point home favorite. They wrap up the best cover percentage and the best ATS record to end out the regular season in the NBA. And a victory I personally needed, DRS. I needed the Magic to win to claim the Southeast Division. They did that.
Had a great week last week on Best Bets right here on the show, and that Friday pick here was not for the Philadelphia 76ers to dismantle the Magic, but just for a total to go over, which it did. Now, 113-88 on Sunday. This was interesting to me because you take a look at the box score and say, well, who came to play here for Milwaukee? Because that final score indicates that Milwaukee was like, dude, we don't want anything to do with that number 2 seed. We're going to bench all our starters.
Yeah.
It wasn't the case. Porter, Middleton, Lopez, Beverly, and Lillard started that game. So basically, the main guy you were without, of course, it was still Giannis. But note, I actually saw that line before the game, and it sort of like got to me a little bit because the Orlando Magic in this game had been playing well down the stretch. And let's just say the closing number was 6.5 to 7.5. I said, oh, that indicates Milwaukee's not trying and won't start their players. But they did here. And then you saw the ramifications saying, well, the Sixers are hoping that the Magic would lose. And then all of a sudden, like, did these teams get on the phone and pick it up? Hey, by the way, look, don't want you to get risk of injury, but we're going to smoke Milwaukee today. So Joel Embiid, even though this is a monster game for you to move up out of the play-in rounds, we're going to sit you out. And the Sixers still handled their business, and rightfully so, in that game. But this was the one that I looked forward to and said, you know what? I think Milwaukee has enough left in the tank to beat a limping Orlando team. But yet they got absolutely shelled in their own building. So when you talk about a team going into the playoffs, the Milwaukee Bucks, I can't remember a team that's was going to be either a 2 or 3 seed coming in with this many down vibes at this point. Because it'd been one thing, Ben, 113, 112, hey, man, we have Giannis. It's going to be a completely different scenario. They got absolutely obliterated in the fourth quarter, got crushed. Couldn't figure that one out.
Yeah, the Bucks, by the way, end the year as the 4th worst cover team around the NBA, just a cover percentage of 43.2%. But to Donnie's point, to end out the regular season with Giannis for some, of course, without for the final 3 games of this regular season, 46-25 on March 24th. They end the year 49-33. They lose 8 of their final 11 games, and because of the loss, they fall to the 3 seed. There was a lot of motivation for how things would organize themselves 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Indiana needed to win at home yesterday against the Atlanta Hawks. The Pacers do that. 157-115. 157-115. Indiana scored 49 points in the opening quarter, had 86 at the break. The Pacers cover as a 14-point favorite. A total of 240 goes over. But the reason I bring this up, Indiana will be the 6th seed in the Eastern Conference. Their opening round matchup is against the Bucks. The Pacers handled Milwaukee throughout the regular season. They won 4 of 5 games in the regular season and the the in-season tournament. That included the in-season tournament semifinal matchup way back on that opening Friday night in December out in Las Vegas, or on that Thursday night in December. Regardless, in the IST semi, Indiana pasted Milwaukee. The Pacers will not be afraid of playing the Bucks even without home floor advantage.
And this is all, like, sometimes when we talk about, like, we joke like sports are scripted sometimes. Tell me, like, these spreads were so wild in the final game. And again, Atlanta didn't need that victory. We knew that coming in, which led you to believe that Trae Young is going to play, 8 minutes just to get warmed up, and DeJounte Murray might play the first quarter and sit. Trae Young played 32 minutes. DeJounte Murray played 31 minutes. They got beat 157 to 115. Like some of these scores, and the same way I just talked about the Orlando game, they aren't adding up here because stars are playing 30-plus minutes and you're getting torched. But the line didn't indicate that, because if you told me before this game, yeah, we know Atlanta doesn't need the game, but they're going to play their guys out there, and they're two superstar guys at least 30 minutes plus, I'd say, okay, Indiana needs the victory. They don't need an actually 157-115 victory, and they hammered them. Now, the question that always comes up here, Ben, right, with the Pacers, how does that regular season 157-point offense translate into the playoffs when it turns into more of a half-court game here? That's the wonder, but you brought up a good point here. It's not a great matchup for Milwaukee, and also, if you're taking a look at a round number one matchup, if Giannis isn't healthy, which means he probably doesn't want to go at a super fast tempo and pace up and down the court, what do the Indiana Pacers try to do at that point here? I'm interested in this series. It's a really good one, because why? I want to see if this Pacers offense translates here, Ben, into the playoffs, and we'll find out right away.
And the pace was slowing a little bit for the Pacers middle of February after the All-Star break through the end of March, but not to end out the regular season. Indiana over in 5 straight to end out the regular season and 6 of its last 7. So you saw the 4-5 matchup. Cleveland has home floor advantage against the Orlando Magic despite losing to the Charlotte Hornets in their regular season finale. So I saw this line early in the day, 13.5 points in favor of Cleveland, trying to position themselves to keep home court advantage in the opening round of the postseason. No Donovan Mitchell, no Darius Garland. So I went back. I was like, all right, maybe the line adjusted drastically in the final 15 minutes prior to tip. No, it closed at 13.5 in favor of the Cavaliers, and the Hornets won by double digits outright on the road. That was interesting. Cleveland 5-9 in its final 14 games to end out the regular season. And we showed you Philadelphia victorious by 21, despite no Joel Embiid and no Tyrese Maxey. The Sixers win 8 straight to end out the regular season. And the Heat win by 15 as a 15.5-point home favorite, not covering by the hook, but will claim that 8th seed in the Eastern Conference. Miami enters the postseason winners of 7 of their previous 8, over in 9 of the last 10 games. So here's the Eastern Conference play-in bracket. The Celtics have been the 1 seed and really have positioned themselves atop the conference in the entirety of the NBA for a good majority of this season. The Knicks, now the 2. It's the Bucks and the Pacers in the 3-6 matchup. Cleveland and Orlando in the 4-5. Cleveland a pretty hefty outright favorite. Milwaukee minus 225 to win its series outright against Indiana. I'm not sure I believe it should be that strong of a number. We're not entirely sure when Giannis Antetokounmpo is going to play, if it will be game 1 or game 2 or game 3. But the focus first and foremost, Donnie, goes to the 7-8 matchup in the Eastern Conference play-in tournament. Philadelphia as the 7 seed. Miami as the 8th seed. And the winner of that game will head to Madison Square Garden to take on the New York Knicks. Philly is a favorite in the Eastern Conference play-in tournament matchup that begins on Wednesday. I ask you the question like this. Winner of that game, Philly or Miami, will be the 7th seed in the Eastern Conference playoff bracket. Will they be the series favorites, despite not having home court advantage against the Knicks inside Madison Square Garden?
I don't think so. And again, this could change, because if Joel Embiid plays in that play-in game against the Heat and they annihilate the Heat by like 15 or 20 points, that could change perception here, as Embiid will be fully healthy. A lot of question marks popped up yesterday in Philadelphia when Joel Embiid did not play in that game. Is he really injured, or the Sixers just doing the right thing, saying, well, he got dinged up a little bit in that previous game against Orlando. Let's be safe here, because whether we win the last game or not, move our seeding up, nothing matters if Embiid is hobbling into the playoffs. That's going to be a key question as it pops up. But that's 7-8 game, because nobody wants to take on the Celtics, Ben. Not a single team wants to be like, you know what, let's lose this game so we can take on the Celtics. Nobody wants that. So this game also feels like a, Eastern Conference Finals, because the winner of this game really believes they probably should be the favorite over the New York Knicks here, and maybe it's not a true number 2 seed. Now, it's not disparaging to the Knicks per se, but it's interesting that the Knicks are able to get that number 2 seed, and then the team's like, you know what, it's either the Celtics or the Knicks. You really want to take on the Knicks. But by the way, real quick on this point, Ben, 132 points by the Boston Celtics without a single starter in the lineup, and Peyton Pritchard drops 38 points. I don't know what's going on in Boston. I don't know how they formulated this bench, but they scored 132 without any starters in the game. That's incredible, man.
And they were only a 7.5-point favorite at home to cap off a season inside TD Garden at 37-4. The Celtics minus 190. Minus 190 to win the Eastern Conference Championship before the playoffs or postseason even begins. But we'll have further conversations about this later on in our second hour because there is tremendous value elsewhere out east.